All right, welcome to Witchpolice Radio. I'm, as always, on the internet. It seems like I don't need to preface the shows by saying that anymore because it's been a couple of years thanks to the pandemic. But I'm still here, still online, and I'm talking to someone who is new to the show, and that's always nice. I mean, I know I do talk to a lot of artists that are new to me and new to the podcast, but I do get a lot of returning guests as well. So it's kind of nice to talk to someone who is completely new. I mean, I've heard your name, I've heard your music online, but this is my first time kind of sitting down and talking to you. So I'm happy to have you on the show. And I think the best way to kick things off is if you want to just introduce yourself and start off by giving a bit of background about what you do musically.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks so much for having me, first of all. My name's Steven, and I perform under the name Tired Cossack. And it's a solo project of mine that I've been doing for just over a year now. Musically, I've been making and recording music for years and years and years, but never to the point where I was releasing it.
Okay.
So it was kind of just for fun or for friends. And then just in the last few years, and a huge credit to that actually goes to my girlfriend, Jody, who's played in bands in Winnipeg for years. But she kind of, was very encouraging and very inspiring in just her own musical career to start putting things out. So it kind of happened really quickly in a weekend where a cousin of mine had a USB mic that she left at my parents' house because my dad borrowed it for something. And I saw it. I was like, oh, I'm going to borrow this, who's from my dad, who's borrowing it from my cousin. And I took it and just like put it near a mic and started making little demos. And within a weekend, I had recorded like what became my first EP, which was like, even looking back now, it's just a year later, is like the jankiest thing. But I don't know. Yeah, it just kind of really kicked on from there and kind of became a little sort of obsession. So I'm really glad that happened because I'm having so much fun now and really glad that I decided to go this way.
Cool. Well, and I'm sick of talking about this, and I'm sure everyone else is too, but it sounds like a bulk of this kind of came out during the pandemic when, the traditional sort of way of making music wasn't really possible in the sense of playing shows and even getting together with other people to record in the traditional in-person face-to-face kind of way. So did that affect kind of your decision to take this more publicly, the fact that you had maybe had time to do it, or the kind of incentive of creating something during this weird position we've all been in?
Yeah, for sure, 100%. Like, I was very lucky that I had the privilege to be able to kind of just stay home and work from home and go to school from home during the pandemic.
Yeah.
And with that, of course, like you say, comes a lot of time. And I think now that you mention it, another element of it might have been the isolation from other people, but also it kind of took away the sort of pressure in a way, being like, okay, well, if I record and put out music, I'm not going to have to like all of a sudden stress and organize a show with a band and stuff. Like I'm kind of just doing this the same way everyone else is right now. So it was like, in a way, forced me to be pretty small time about it, which I really liked. And so I mean, the pandemic was obviously horrible and took its toll on so many people in so many really tough ways. But, I feel really lucky for having that one kind of bright spot within it.
Cool. And so how is this, how has it been received now? I mean, because again, we're still in a situation where, shows are starting to happen again, but it's still not the way it was, in the before times, and maybe it never will be. But what has the reception been kind of over this lockdown time where you've been putting music out there and people are hearing you for the first time?
It's weird because I can't really compare it to anything because I wasn't releasing music before COVID.
Yeah.
So this is kind of all I really know. Like, I was not really in the scene as a musician. I'm a huge fan of local music and, a big proponent of going to shows and being engaged with it. But to answer your question, it's been really surprising and almost overwhelming, especially with the album I just released, which I think kind of took that extra step from the stuff I was doing before. I'm really looking forward to playing shows. I did a kind of DIY secret show late summer, which was kind of my first show as Tired Cossack.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I had done another kind of DIY thing early in the summer, but even so, I have a show now at Club St. B on December 30th, which is kind of like a belated album release. And I'm so excited for that. It's been a long time coming, I think. And the people that I'm lucky enough to be playing with are all great musicians that are gonna kind of help back me up. So yeah, it's gonna be good.
Cool. One of the things that I was listening to your stuff today too, and one of the things that seems like a recurring theme throughout all of this, at least based on the descriptions you have online and everything, is the Ukrainian folklore kind of elements of the song. So, what can you tell me about that? Because I'm not Ukrainian. I'm sure there's very interesting folklore that I'm just unaware of. And I mean, so what is the background there? Presumably, you are Ukrainian and you have
Yeah.
that history and everything. But what kind of
Hmm.
is that inspiration as far as your songs?
Yeah, so like musically, I think like not a lot of my like instrumentation or anything is like, it's not like a zrada, which is kind of
Yeah.
very following that traditional thing, but it's more in kind of what's going on in my head when writing the songs and what kind of ideas I guess I'm trying to convey. And yeah, it comes from all sorts of places. So things that I grew up with, especially with like my baba on my mom's side, she was like, what my mom would call a big Ukrainian. Um, and so she, was just in the way that she lived her life. It wasn't even just in stories per se, but she was very superstitious.
Okay.
In her relationship to like spirituality, and even like her religion was what my mom called like hocus pocus religion. So it's always like kind of cause and effect. So
Okay.
if you do this, this will happen. Or if you don't do this, this will happen. And if this happens, it means this. And these are all like very rigid rules almost to guide your life. So there's a lot of element of that. And I was really kind of, because I have some of that I do all the time. Um, and like for example, like I'm not even religious, but like when I was a kid, if I drove by, or if I was in a car driving by a church, I'd like cross myself three
Oh yeah.
times
Yeah.
because I was scared shitless because I was told of what's going to happen. Um, and then in the other kind of like folkloric ways, that really comes from almost my own journey of kind of being able to look back at that and kind of re-engage with that part of my cultural identity. So like stories that come out of like works from Nikolai Gogol, for example, or even just folk tales that I've heard that I kind of decided to dig more deeply into, like Ivasik Telesik and Kotokaroshko, or two old Ukrainian folk tales that are
Okay.
just kind of interestingly both about like young boys who grow out of inanimate objects, like one's a pea and one's a piece of wood. And then there's a lot of like almost pagan sort of symbolism within it. They're not really that didactic or anything, so like there's no fable element to it. But
Right.
yeah, I just thought like this is cool. This kind of ties into the whole area that I'm sort of passionate about, especially when it comes to making art. I think that's something that it's only natural to want to reflect. So yeah, I think like that's basically, a general overview of where all that comes from. I was lucky
Sure.
too in my undergrad to do a course in Ukrainian culture, which was like kind of weird, kind of studying your own culture in an academic sort of way.
I
You
bet.
almost have this
Yeah. Yeah.
academic distance in a lot of ways, but then personally, I'm super engaged. And yeah, a lot of it comes from just things I learned in that, being like, oh, that's why things are the way they are.
Well, and I guess you have almost a benefit of referencing that kind of history and that kind of cultural elements, because there's that saying that every song's already been written and every topic has already been covered x amount of times. But at least in Canada, a lot of those topics are going to be new to a lot of listeners
Mm.
who don't have that background. So you're drawing from something a little different, I think, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, I don't. It's not really a question so much as just like I just realized that now
Yeah,
as I was
no,
talking to
for
you.
sure, man. That's cool. I like that.
Where does I mean, I was listening to the most recent record, the one that Hocus Pocus, the one that came out,
Mm.
I guess a couple months ago, or not even. It's
It
very
came out
recent,
on
right?
Friday on December
Right.
3rd. Yeah.
Okay. So it's very, very recent. And it's kind of, I don't know how you define what the sound is, because there seems like multiple different elements throughout. I mean, the title track is basically a punk song. There's stuff that could qualify as folk. There's obviously indie rock things going on there. I know labels are hard, and everything is a subgenre of a subgenre of a subgenre. But do
Yeah.
you have like a Cole's Notes version you give to people when they ask what kind of music you play?
Yeah, I'm getting there, I think. Because like, yeah, I've obviously talked to lots of people about it, tried to describe it in many different ways. And I really kind of overall would call it almost post-punk, just because that's where most of my influence comes, and that in itself can be a very kind of broad genre. I feel like there are genres within it if you look at like, you know, dark wave or new wave and stuff
Right.
like that. And then there are elements of, as you put, like folk or like more straight up punk, and then even like country, like 50s country. So we're
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
like Johnny Cash, Chris Christopherson, things like that. So yeah, I guess when I've like gone into writing songs, it was never with a genre in mind. Maybe there'd be a riff or something, or you know, a certain drum beat that I was like would have stuck in my head. So okay, I'm gonna like key this in just for now, and
Yeah.
then kind of come back to it. And yeah, things kind of go that certain way. I feel like I do build in a lot of my influences, but yeah, it's definitely like, it sounds silly to say, but it's very sort of chaotic, and that's kind of what I try to describe to people. Like, it, in a way, it sort of bounces all over the place, but I like to think there's some sort of unity within it too, with kind of like, you know, very sort of squonky chorusy guitars or like
Yeah.
driving bass lines, things like that.
Do you think that that kind of difficulty in pinning it down is going to be beneficial to you once you start playing more shows, in the sense that you could probably fit in? I mean, you could play with a punk band and it wouldn't be out of place,
Yeah,
right? Or you could play a folk show and it also wouldn't be out of place. Or, you know,
for
and all these
sure.
other
Yeah,
styles.
I thought about it 100%. So like, I could probably, with the stuff I put out before as well, make like a more country or folk set, and then
Yeah.
make more of like a straight up punk set. Yeah, I hope it helps going forward. I mean, I don't know if it will or not, but you know,
Yeah.
it could be one of these things where it's like you're a jack of all trade, master of none. But
Right.
I
Right.
hope so.
Cool. Yeah. I hope so too, for your sake. Because I mean, yeah,
Yeah,
it's always
cheers.
nice to be able to kind of move between. Winnipeg obviously has so many different styles of music, and there's
Yeah.
obviously little micro scenes within each of them. But it's, yeah, the ability to kind of pass in and
Mm,
out of them is got to be helpful. I would imagine.
yeah.
I guess you'll find out.
Fingers crossed. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
One thing I wanted to ask you too is, in listening to it, I'm not sure if this is a conscious choice you make or if it's just kind of how it comes out, but I feel like your voice is very, I don't know what the word is. It's sort of almost authoritative. It's fairly booming, not in songs where necessarily you wouldn't expect that. I mean, some of the more country stuff, more folk stuff, you have a very I don't know, authoritative is the only thing that comes to mind, but it's a very kind of really present voice that is whereas in a lot of folk stuff, something is very soft and subtle, and you seem to be the opposite of that. And not in a bad way. It's just this like kind of
Yeah.
very present voice over top of what you're doing.
Yeah, honestly, thanks. That's like, I guess, a nice compliment.
Yeah, but I hope it is.
Yeah,
I mean
it's
it in a
not a,
positive way. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's not a conscious thing. I think I'm just like a loud person generally, but you know, I think too, when I'm recording vocals, I'm very sort of careful. I want it to, you know, sound good. So
Yeah.
I think just something in my head, you know, I'm not trained as a singer, but you know, if I project it, I will have a little more control. Maybe my voice won't crack, if,
Yeah.
because you know, sometimes you go a little quiet, my voice cracks
Yeah,
still.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Never quite got past that part of puberty. But yeah, so maybe that's part of the reason. I think you know, music is inherently performative too, and when you
Yeah.
know, I know that there's an audience, I definitely will get louder, voice will boom a bit more. But yeah, I mean, you know, like I said, it's not conscious, so that's kind of, I guess, part of me, you know, and part of my singing style. Um, and yeah, I think like my voice changes, especially on this album. I think I got a little more comfortable singing with like my own voice. I think in my earlier stuff, I was almost trying to sound like another singer. Like, you know,
Yeah.
I'm not super like down with him as a person these days, but like Morrissey would come
Okay.
to mind, and kind of like the way that I would sing certain things, where I think on this one I was really trying to just kind of, you know, capture my own voice.
Yeah.
um and I think, yeah, I did that to varying degrees of success. I think in some places I'm still trying to do a little bit of like a Roy Orbison or something when I
Okay.
listen
Yeah.
back. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's cool to hear, because yeah, it's not something that I really like go into trying to put across. But yeah, I'll take it.
Cool. I don't think many people are cool with Morrissey as a person these days either. So I mean,
Yeah,
it's a,
no, I would
probably
hope
a,
not.
yeah, yeah. So what? I know you released two tapes now, right? And a couple of singles. Is that
Yeah,
kind of where
yeah.
you are? Is
So yeah, I made. I'll just go through the
Yeah,
discography
sure,
because
sure.
it's easy. So I made that EP that I called EP, and that's like the weekend
Yeah.
session. So that ended up being 7 songs. Then I had another single that was just like, especially when I first started, I like didn't understand, what to do in terms of like post production or
Yeah, of course. How would you know, right?
like
Yeah,
putting
yeah.
it out there. So I just like, okay, it's done. Fucking punch it into some program that like quote unquote masters it, and
Right.
let's get it fucking uploaded. Let's go. And so I made another one pretty much a month after called Church. That was just like 2 songs. Then I had another single called Shashka, which was like very cold, grim post-punk. And then like I guess I would say like my first EP that I've actually put a lot of thought into and like made a tape for like physical copy was called Selo, which is like means village in Ukrainian. So that was more sort of on the folky
Okay.
side, almost country, not quite though. And then this release was my first one since then, and I had a couple singles to kind of like get the ball rolling on that. But yeah, I'd say this is my first full length album, and this is one where like I was like, okay, I'm not mixing this one myself because I don't know what I'm doing.
Give it to the experts, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I got to give a shout out to Donovan Ostapovich, who really helped with making it sound the way it did.
That's just going through that discography like you just did there. I mean, it's a pretty good pace of releasing music. I mean, that's all within a very short amount of time. Are you hoping to keep that up, or is that just kind of how things worked out? Like, do you want to be continually releasing new stuff, or are you?
Yeah,
What's your plan going
yeah.
forward?
It happens in bursts. So it's never been like here's the game plan. It's just like I'll really procrastinate or I'll really not want to do
Yeah,
anything to do with music for a while, and then you fuck around or you get something stuck in your head. I probably have like 50 voice memos at this point of me just kind of going like like something
yeah, yeah.
like, and most of it like it just stays there forever, and it's like me cringing on a plane when my data is not working to like fucking pass the time. But
Yeah, yeah,
um yeah, anyway, yeah, and then I'll sit down and all of a sudden I'll have like 3 demos, and even if at that point it's only really like a bass line and some guitar or like a drum beat and some like mumbling vocals.
yeah,
Once that starts, I will start to kind of get a little fixated on it, and we'll start to get so many new ideas from listening to it over and over and over again. Like I'll just listen to this demo like 30 times in a day, like shopping for groceries, and like I'll
sure.
want to get home and work on it. So yeah, if that keeps happening, I'll keep putting out music. Anytime I've tried to like force myself to do it, I ended up hating the way it sounds.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
It has to be organic, right?
yeah, I mean, like, and that sounds cliche, but it's true. I think it's that way for a reason, where if you are really inspired, it's really easy to all of a sudden kind of crank out a few demos and be really jacked up about it and be able to give it that attention even in like my other times when I'm not working on music, to just like have it in the headphones constantly going and
Yeah,
constantly like thinking of what I could do with this. So yeah, the plan is definitely to keep going. It's been a really fun year. I'll see how kind of real life goes, if
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
able to kind of keep it up now that I'm not working from home every day.
Right.
But yeah, that's definitely the plan, is to maybe not the same pace, but whatever I can.
Cool, cool. What is the first of all, as I guess an old man who is also a Luddite, I definitely like that you're doing tapes. I still listen to physical media for everything. I don't know how to use Spotify or any of that shit, but so it's always nice to see whenever someone's releasing physical stuff. I love it. But what was the reason for you behind doing tapes? I mean, I know there's a lot of options out there right now. Clearly, you have digital versions too. But
Yeah.
what was your decision making behind that?
Yeah, that's a good question. So tapes, I really thought about this a lot. Is number one something I can afford to
Of
produce,
course, yeah,
because
yeah,
I'm putting everything out myself, and I can afford to sell tapes for like, depending on the order, like $10 $5 10, where like I can't fucking afford vinyl. I
no one
can't.
can, yeah,
And like
yeah,
anything else, and like CDs is like, I don't know, maybe give it another, like, and CDs just aren't as cool. Like tapes can be really pretty.
they
Tape
can, yeah,
sleeves are so cool, and the tape itself is just like a nice thing. And I've just always thought it's really important, because even, you know, like I have a tape player, but if I didn't, I would still buy tapes, because it's nice too, especially if it's like local bands or people, you
Yeah.
know, have a personal connection with, you want to support them in a way that you can also kind of have like a tangible representation of their music and their art that they put a lot of time into. And it's a, in itself is like a really cool looking thing that you can kind of hold and fidget with. I don't know. So
Yeah.
yeah, I've always liked tapes. So I was, yeah, it's always something like I'm definitely going to do that if I put out music.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad to hear it too, because I mean, it's funny. I've had some people on the show over the years who have put out tapes and they don't even own tape decks, and it's just
Hmm.
again for those reasons, right? They want to have something available at shows that people can take home, because a download card
Yeah,
is like a piece of paper. You know, it's not. It's
yeah,
you don't feel
exactly.
like you've accomplished anything by buying a download
No,
card or whatever, right? So
yeah,
yeah, I
no,
get it for
tapes
sure.
are great. Yeah, it's just like, I don't know, my girlfriend and I, if we like are able to have like a dinner where we both sit down, we always like pop a tape in.
Yeah,
Honestly, my
yeah,
personal favorite is the soundtrack of The Princess Bride. Great dinner music.
great movie too.
It's a good movie.
Yeah. So, where can people find this stuff? I mean, I know that the good thing about this being a podcast is someone can
Mm,
hear it, you know, the day after it comes out, or they could hear it 2 years from now. So, what's the
yeah.
best way to sort of track you down and hear what you're up to?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of like getting a tape, it's all on my Bandcamp. If you just like Google Tired Cossack Bandcamp, I don't know what the exact link is. And
I'll,
then,
I'll
you know,
link to it in the show notes so people
for
can click
sure,
on this.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so the link in the show bio.
yeah.
Also, I'd say like the social media, if you want to like get at me personally, would be like just Tired Cossack on Instagram. That's probably the one I use the most. I don't really have like a Twitter or Facebook or
Okay.
anything. Um, so yeah, that would be probably the main thing. If you wanted to like, you know, get in touch to say hi or to say like go fuck yourself, that would be that would be the way to go.
Right. And then I assume all your stuff's on the streaming services and whatnot, right?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I can do the little distro kid thing, which is, you know, pretty affordable. And then, yeah, people can access it that way. And it's like, man, it's so bad. I like check it all the time when I put new stuff out, because you can like look at the app that like tells you like
Right.
live of how many people are listening. And you like look at this little thing. You're like, this is so cool. I don't know. The novelty still hasn't worn off for me yet.
Right. Well, hopefully it doesn't ever wear off. I mean, hopefully you're always still
Yeah.
interested in checking that out.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah.
For
And
sure.
then as far as upcoming shows and stuff, I mean, again, this could be listened to anytime. So I
Yeah.
imagine like your social media is the best way to find you, Instagram,
Yeah.
as far as
Yeah.
show listings.
Probably I will try to get one of these. Like, I mean, you call yourself a Luddite. I mean, I'm at least a step ahead of you with having like Spotify and
Yeah.
stuff. But I gotta get like, people have like this link tree thing in their
Yeah.
Instagram and like websites and stuff. I don't have any of that. I maybe will, if it's something that I can just like kind of do in an afternoon.
Oh, it takes like
I'll do
2 minutes.
it.
I have one, and I'm useless at this stuff. So yeah.
Okay, so there you go. All right, tables have turned.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll get one of those going so I
Right
can
on.
keep people updated. Right now, the only show I have on the horizon is this album release show, December 30th, at Club St. B, which will be pretty dope. And yeah,
Are
hopefully,
the
you know,
are the tapes, or do you anticipate the tapes to be available at anywhere locally, like at any local stores or anything?
yeah. So I have some tapes from my first from Cello at Yetman's General Store out by the perimeter there,
Okay.
and then Riley Gray in
Okay.
the city. I've been meaning to take some to like Into the Music and other places, but man, I'm just like lazy, or like I will just forget over and over and over again, you know. I was talking the other day, just like stupid idea of like making some fucking skit where it's just like I go in with like a big coat and try and like hide my tape in a music store. Like get apprehended and like 1,000 tapes fall out of my coat.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll start doing that. I'll keep the link tree updated if that happens.
Right on.
Yeah.
Right on.